What's up guys, welcome back. So today we're going to be looking at what I think are the top 10 most underrated abilities in Smite, with a few honourable mentions as well. Now before we start, in my mind, underrated means powerful but not necessarily considered powerful by most people. It doesn't mean the abilities are bad in any way, it also doesn't mean they're insanely powerful, it just means they're more powerful than people think they are. And also, if you're watching this video further in the future from when it releases, it's entirely possible some of these might not be underrated anymore. People might, start to respect how powerful they are, or they might get buffed or nerfed, whatever. But as of the current day, I think these are pretty underrated, so let's get right into it. So first up on the list at number 10, we've got Isis's Dispel magic. So obviously, this ability is a silence for 2 seconds. That's what most people know it as, and I think that's why people underrate it quite a bit. They think it's just a silence and it's in a small AoE, which it isn't. It actually gives a 20% slow for 2.5 seconds, which isn't insane by any respect, but it's good. And then also, the thing that I think mainly people don't recognise on this ability is that it has a 30% protection reduction and a 30% protection increase. So like 30% protection reduction is almost an Obsidian shard. The Season 4 Obsidian shard, I mean, not 5. That's almost an Obsidian shard worth of protection reduction for 2.5 seconds, which is pretty insane. And then it also increases Isis's protections by 30% as well, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous and people overlook quite a lot. Like, granted this ability has a long cooldown and quite a limited range and small AoE, but all the stuff that it does, people don't respect it enough in my opinion. At number 9 we've got Janices Threshold. I was considering not putting this ability on the list because I feel like a lot of people do respect how powerful this is, but there's still a lot of the people that play Smite that don't know how powerful this ability really is. Obviously it's got the 25% slow attached to it, which is pretty respectable, a decent slow, but it's also got the 30% movement speed to all allies that cross the threshold and that go through portals. A lot of people don't know this, but Janice's whole movement speed idea with going through portals and crossing thresholds is actually a passive tied to this ability, not his original passive. His original passive is just the damage bonus for Janice, so anything to do with like going through a portal and gaining movement speed is actually the passive on this ability itself, which people don't actually know a lot, I think. It also has an insane 7-second duration, which can actually like block off jungle paths sometimes. Like if your team's going through a jungle area, you can just drop it, boost your entire team, and then any enemies that want to follow you through it are going to get slowed massively, or they have to wait 7 seconds for it to expire, which is pretty insane. And also it does work with Janice's passive, his actual passive, with the bonus damage as well, which is also really nice. Coming in at number 8, we've got Ares' Bolster defenses. I feel like this ability is really often overlooked by a lot of people. It can buff minion waves early game with 20 protections, which is pretty insane for like early clear. Like granted Ares' clear isn't that great, but if he buffs up his own minions with this ability in the early game, it's actually not so bad. And also, when you've got it max level in later game teamfights, it gives 40 protections, which is pretty huge on your squishies. Like, it's not as important on Ares himself or like your frontline tanks, but on your squishies, that's like doubling their protections for the duration, which is pretty insane. And also the CCR is really nice. If there's any like incoming CCs that you can predict quite well, you can pop that to reduce the duration of them on your entire team. Also worth a mention quickly is that the bonuses increase with if you have shackled enemies. So if you have 3 shackled enemies, it can give up to 61 protections to your entire team, which actually is pretty insane if you can get that to work. Next up, we've got Hebers' Water Carpet. I don't know the full name of this ability. I can't bother looking it up because it's a really long name, I think. So basically, the slow immunity is what I think a lot of people don't respect on this ability. Like, granted, the 50% movement speed and 50% slow is insane. Granted, it's only on the carpet, but the slow and movement speed is really good for this ability, and a lot of people don't respect that either, but I think a lot of people just don't respect the slow immunity on this ability. Like, it's basically like having upgraded Heavenly Wings with a slow immunity, but on like a really low cooldown. And for its entire team. It's kind of ridiculous. I feel like people are starting to respect how powerful this ability is now. Like, a lot of people just look at Hebers' other abilities and like, haha, he's got 3 ultimates because they do so much damage, but like, no one really respects the utility he has with this ability, I think, so that's why it's a number 7 on my list. Next up, we've got Ymir's Wall of Ice. This was another one that I was hesitant to put on the list because I feel like a lot of people are starting to really respect how powerful this ability is, especially with like displays from pro players playing Ymir that just like wreck people with this wall. The movement block is just really insane against certain gods. Like if the enemy tries to run some kind of AMC thing in duo lane, like you can just, if he tries to go into his jungle or something, you can just block him off straight up. And it should be even better with the Season 5 jungle with a lot of tighter corridors that you can block off with the wall. Like, it has a 6-second lifetime with only a 14-second cooldown at max rank, so with some CDR, you're going to have it up really often, which I think is really nice, and a lot of people just don't respect how powerful blocking people's movement with this really is. Coming in at number 4, we've got Nua's passive, Strength of Wood. It's not the most insane passive in the game, I get that, but I really do think it's highly underrated by a lot of people. Like, a 1.5 second root for free is pretty insane. Like, there's no cooldown on it other than stacking your passive back up. And it also costs no mana or anything like that. It doesn't take up an ability slot. I feel like people don't respect how powerful a 1.5 second root on demand is. Like, if you can just stack your passive up with 5 auto attacks and just keep it there ready for a team fight, you can just throw it out and then you can either chain stun them with your minions or something like that, or set up other people's CC and damage with the root. If you have a really coordinated team, I feel like this boosts its power level quite a bit. You see a lot of pro players like utilising this passive really well in coordinated teams when they play New War mid, because it's just insane that it doesn't take up an ability slot and can root for that long, so that's why it's number 5 on my list. Next up, we got Thanos' 2, Scent of Death. It's just got insane amounts of flat pen on this ability. Like, I feel like people just don't respect that this has 35 free flat pen on it for 6 seconds. Like, that's insane. That's like 2 items worth of penetration for 6 seconds. It also has implication for his builds, as I kind of briefly mentioned there. Like, the pen cap is 50 for flat penetration, so you effectively just need 1 penetration item, and if you're ranking this up in the early game, you can hit the penetration cap with like just 1, like a Brawler's Beat Stick or something in the early game. You buy Brawlers, you pop this, and for 6 seconds you're at the penetration cap and hitting squishes for true damage. Like, it's pretty insane if you level this early. Granted, the 30% or 60% towards a target movement speed is pretty insane as well, and the cooldown is really low. With max CDR, it's only 7.8 seconds and has a 6 second duration, so it's up really fucking often with CDR. But I feel like the reason it's mostly underrated is the fact that people don't respect how much penetration this ability actually gives. When at number 3, we got Shaq's Torrent. The protections on this ability I feel like people don't respect enough. Like, at max rank, if you hit 5 targets with it, it gives 100 protections. 100 fucking protections. Like, that's more than an item worth of stuff just from casting this ability on 5 people. Granted, in team fights, you're not going to be hitting 5 people with it, but if you can group someone up in a minion wave or something, you can hit like 4 minions in a god or 5 minions, whatever, like when you're clearing, and you can get up to 100 protections with it, which is really insane. It also works as a conditional dash and escape, obviously, people know this sort of stuff, but with the axe, it can be a pretty nice, like, you can play a little game, you know, you throw your axe one way, you run the other way, and they have to guess, and then you can teleport back to it and stuff, so it actually works pretty well as an escape. And you can also double tap the damage on this ability with the axe, like if you dash through them, it applies the damage once, and then when you spin, it also applies the damage again, so you can actually chunk people pretty hard with this ability as well when you use it with the axe. But I feel like the protections is the main reason I'm putting it on this list. Like, 100 protections is just ridiculous. And number 2, I've put Xing Chen's Furious Roar. The main reason I'm putting this on the list is because of the 50% basic attack damage reduction to anyone hit by this. I feel like people either just don't know that it does this or don't understand how powerful that is. Like, literally halving someone's basic attack damage is absolutely ridiculous. Like, you throw this on their ADC and they're just doing half damage with autos for the next like 5 seconds. It's actually insane. Like, granted, it does decent base damage and also has the 12% max HP damage at max rank and a fairly low cooldown as well. It's 8.4 seconds, I think, with max CDR for this ability. So you can have this up really often, just throwing it on their hunters or like their Freyas and Souls, things like that, and just reducing their basic attack damage by so much. That's definitely the reason I put it on the list. Okay, before we get to number 1 quickly, I've got 4 honorable mentions. First one, Chiron's training exercise. Like, of course this has the good damage and applies the mark for Masterful Shot for clear, but I feel like the cleanse is what people don't respect and what makes it underrated for me. Loki's Vanish. Like, of course you get the invisibility, but it also removes slows and gives immunity at slows. Has 25% damage reduction to anything that he gets hit by while he's invisible, and also does a good chunk of tick damage. Osiris' Sickle Strike, because it's just some of the best poke in the game. Like, the cooldown for this is insanely low, you can just keep throwing it at people, and it stacks his passive really well as well. And Zhonghui's entire kit, pretty much. I feel like Zhonghui is just really underrated right now, and pretty much all of his abilities aren't respected enough. Hopefully in Season 5, if he gets a few buffs, things like that, he should actually start performing a bit better, and people respect how powerful he is. I'd say specifically his passive and his 3 if I was going to have to choose some abilities, especially now that his 3 gives the bonus basic attack damage always, even when it's on cooldown. That's pretty insane. And also the protections from his demon bag are really good. But anyway, that's enough on Zhonghui. Let's get on to number 1. Number 1 for me is Hell's Cleanse, and also I'm going to throw in Hinder here as well. This is her 2, like both forms, but I feel like the light form Cleanse is the best. The CC immunity is just insane. Like, you can grant 1.5 seconds of CC immunity on a 12-second cooldown at max rank, which late game is just insane. It's really good against like predictable CCs like Ares Ultimate or Hercules combo. Like if he's Earthbreakered someone, you can just throw the cleanse down and it'll immune the driving strike. The Hinder slow and protection debuffs are really good as well, but I feel like I'm mainly putting this on the list for the cleanse because like it's on 12-second cooldown, 7.2 seconds with full CDR that you can just give people CC immunity repeatedly in a team fight, which is pretty fucking insane. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know any abilities you think should have been on the list or if you agree with a lot of my placements or anything like that in the comments. But that's about it. Peace out, nerds.